What happens when one of Hollywood's most respected actors walks onto a talk show set and refuses to play along? When what was supposed to be a calm chat about his latest project turns into a clash of beliefs that no one expected? Today, we're going to talk about the moment Kevin Costner's visit to The View completely fell apart. And trust me, you'll want to hear how this one went down. But before we start, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and leave a comment below telling me whose side you're on after hearing the full story, because this one really split the internet. Kevin Costner steps onto The View, set to what looks like a normal warm welcome. The crowd is clapping, the hosts are smiling, and he's there to discuss his new Western series, a project he's clearly poured his heart and soul into. He takes a seat, greets Whoopi, waves to the audience, and everything feels like just another interview. Then Joy Behar jumps in with the first question. "Kevin, welcome back," she says with her familiar grin. "So, how much of your own money did you actually spend on this Western? Rumor has it, it's in the hundreds of millions." Kevin smiles politely, not thrown off. "Well, Joy," he says, "I don't usually talk exact numbers, but yes, I've invested a lot. When you believe in something, in telling stories that matter, you put your money where your mouth is. This isn't just a vanity project for me. It's about keeping alive a piece of American storytelling that's fading away." A Joy leans forward slightly, her tone shifting. "But Kevin," she says, "and I mean this respectfully, are Westerns really what audiences want now? We're living in a modern world with modern issues. Don't you think that's a lot of money to spend on looking backward?" There's a low murmur in the audience. Kevin Unk's expression tightens just a bit. "Looking backward," he repeats slowly. "Joy, with all due respect, understanding where we came from isn't looking backward. It's recognizing the foundation of who we are, the frontier stories, the values of self-reliance and integrity. Those are timeless." Sunny Hostin jumps in trying to calm things. "I think what Joy means," she says, "is how you make that connect with younger viewers who might not relate to that period." But Joy isn't backing off. "No, Sunny," she says, "what I mean is, should we still be romanticizing an era that had serious problems? The treatment of Native Americans, the glorification of gun violence, the overly masculine and mostly white view of history." The room gets noticeably quieter. Kevin takes a slow breath, clearly choosing his words. "Joy," he says, "my films have always tried to show the truth of that time. Dances with Wolves didn't exactly hide how Native Americans were treated. I've spent my career telling stories, honestly, not sugarcoating them." Joy shrugs slightly. "But you're still making Westerns, Kevin. Isn't that just nostalgia for a past that wasn't great for everyone?" Whoopi steps in. "I think we can agree Kevin's films have always handled those subjects carefully." Kevin raises his hand gently. "No, Whoopi, it's okay. I want to respond." He turns toward Joy. "You know what's interesting, Joy? You're questioning my decision to tell stories about American history, the frontier, the struggles of that era. But not every story has to be a political message about today. Sometimes a story can simply show truth, beauty, and tragedy together without being an endorsement of everything that happened." But Joy crosses her arms. "But you're still choosing what to show and what not to show." "Kevin, that's the point." "Of course I am," Kevin replies, his tone sharpening. "Every filmmaker makes choices. Every storyteller decides what to highlight. But I'm not going to apologize for telling stories about courage, survival, and building something in hard times. Those are human stories. So they go beyond politics." Sarah Haynes tries to steer things back. "Kevin, tell us about your cast. You've got an incredible lineup of actors." But Joy presses on. "I just think, Kevin, that with your influence and resources, you could be telling more relevant stories. Stories about what's happening right now, about the problems we face today." Kevin's face hardens slightly. "And who decides what's relevant?" "Joy, you studio executives. Twitter. I make films about what I believe has meaning, about human nature, about character, about principle. Those things matter, no matter what time period they're set in." The tension in the studio is now obvious. The hosts exchange glances. The audience is quiet, watching closely. Joy stares back at Kevin, clearly not ready to drop it. Human nature, character principle, she says, her voice sharper now. Those sound nice, Kevin. But let's be honest, Westerns celebrate a kind of rugged individualism. That's part of what's wrong with this country today. That idea that everyone should fend for themselves, that we don't need community or shared responsibility. Kevin narrows his eyes. That's not what my films are about. Joy. And I think you know that, don't they, though? Joy challenges. The lone hero. The man who doesn't need anyone. The guy who solves things with a gun. Kevin S. voice rises slightly. Now you're being reductive and unfair. Have you actually watched my work? Or are you just repeating cliches about the genre? The crowd gasps. This is not the kind of back and forth the View usually sees. Whoopi opens her mouth to speak, but Joy jumps back in. I've seen your movies, Kevin, and yes, they're well made. But that doesn't mean I can't question the ideas they promote. Question all you want, Kevin says, leaning forward. But don't tell me that stories about honor, sacrifice, and doing the right thing even when it's hard, that those are somehow bad values. That's offensive. Joy holds her ground. I'm not saying honor and sacrifice are bad, Kevin. I'm saying the world you put them in. This Western mythology carries baggage. And maybe instead of defending it, you should acknowledge that Kevin's tone stays calm, but there's clear frustration behind it. Acknowledge what exactly? That I should be ashamed for making movies about American history. That I should apologize for exploring how this country was built with all its flaws and all its hope. There you go again, Joy says, gesturing American history. How this country was built for millions of people. Kevin, that history meant genocide, slavery, exploitation. So, yes, maybe you should think about that when you spend a fortune glorifying the frontier. Kevin's face turns red with emotion. I have thought about it, Joy. I've thought about it deeply. That's why I made Dances with Wolves. That's why I show native perspectives. That's why my characters aren't perfect heroes. They're flawed, conflicted people making impossible choices. But it feels like you want me to stop telling these stories altogether because they make you uncomfortable. Alyssa Farrah Griffin tries to step in. Maybe there's a middle ground where we can appreciate history, but still look at it with a critical eye. But Joy is locked in now. Let me ask you this, Kevin. When you make these Westerns, who are they for? Who's your audience? Kevin looks almost stunned. For anyone who wants to watch them. For people who care about storytelling, acting, cinematography. I don't make films for a demographic. Joy. But they attract a certain crowd, don't they? Joy continues. Older, mostly white, mostly conservative viewers who miss a simpler time, one that never really existed. The crowd reacts instantly. Gasps, whispers, some clapping, some shaking their heads. Kevin stares at Joy for a long moment. When he finally speaks, his voice is calm but cutting. That is incredibly condescending, he says softly. But there's steel underneath. You're basically saying that anyone who enjoys Westerns must be some kind of nostalgic conservative who can't handle the modern world. You're putting millions of people into one box just because of the kind of movies they like. And you're doing it to make a political argument. I'm making an observation, Kevin. Joy replies calmly. And I think it's a fair one. It's not fair. It's lazy. Kevin fires back. It's lazy thinking. You're taking a genre that's told so many different kinds of stories, that's evolved over generations, that's been used by filmmakers to explore everything from racism to corporate greed to the destruction of nature. And you're shrinking it down into a political stereotype. That's not analysis, Joy. That's just bias. Joy expression tightens. Bias. I'm biased for pointing out that Westerns traditionally center on white male perspectives. You're biased for assuming that's all they can ever be. Kevin responds instantly. You're biased for deciding that stories about strength and frontier life have no value just because they don't fit your political lens. And honestly, Joy, I think you're being intellectually dishonest right now. The studio falls completely silent. Whoopi's eyes widen. The other host looks stunned. Joy mouth opens slightly, clearly taken aback. Intellectually dishonest. Joy repeats, her voice rising. Kevin, I'm asking you honest questions about the choices you make as a filmmaker. No, you're not. Kevin interrupts. You're not asking questions. You're throwing accusations disguised as questions. There's a difference. You've already decided that what I do is problematic, and now you're just trying to get me to admit it. But I'm not going because I don't believe that. Sonny steps in carefully. Kevin, I think Joy is just trying to start a conversation about representation and whose stories get told in Hollywood. Then let's actually have that conversation. Kevin says, turning towards Sonny. Let's talk about it truthfully. Yes, Hollywood has historically shut out a lot of voices. Yes, we need more diverse stories and diverse storytellers. I completely agree with that. But that doesn't mean the solution is to stop telling certain kinds of stories or to shame people who make traditional ones. You expand the conversation. You don't close it off. Joy leans forward again. But Kevin, when there are limited screens, limited budgets, limited attention, and you choose to make another Western, you're making a decision about what gets space and what doesn't. Joy, I'm funding this myself, Kevin says, frustration slipping into his tone. I'm not taking anyone's money. I'm not blocking anyone else from making their films. I'm using my own money to tell a story I believe in. How exactly is that taking something away from anyone? Because you have influence, Joy argues. You have power in Hollywood. And when someone like you makes Westerns, it tells the industry that this is what matters. This is what should get investment. It keeps the same cycle going. Kevin shakes his head firm and steady. That's such a cynical way to see art, Joy. By that logic, no one should ever make anything in a traditional genre again. No detective stories, no war films, no romances, no science fiction because it might send the wrong signal. That's ridiculous. It's not ridiculous. It's reality. Joy pushes back. The entertainment industry isn't a level playing field, Kevin. You know that. Of course, I know that, Kevin replies, his frustration now clear. But the answer isn't to make me feel guilty for making the films I love. The answer is to support more filmmakers from all backgrounds telling their own stories. But that's not really what you're doing, is it? You'd rather criticize me for doing mine. Joy's voice gets louder now. I'm criticizing the choices you make. Yes, because they matter. Because when someone with your platform chooses to spend hundreds of millions on Westerns instead of something more relevant, more urgent, more connected to the issues we face today, that's worth questioning. More relevant to who? Kevin shoots back to you, to your politics. Joy, not everything has to be about the crisis of the moment. Sometimes people need stories that take them somewhere else, that remind them of timeless values, that show them something beautiful, tragic, or meaningful beyond today's headlines. That's escapism, Joy says dismissively. It's art, Kevin fires back instantly. And you're sitting here telling me that the only art worth making is art that serves your political agenda. That's not criticism, Joy. That's propaganda. The word hits the room like a grenade. The audience reacts all at once. Some clapping, others gasping, a few shouting. The other hosts start talking over each other, trying to calm things down. Whoopi holds up her hands, calling for quiet, but Joy and Kevin are locked on each other across the table, neither one giving an inch. Joy faces red now, clearly furious. Propaganda. You're calling me a propagandist just because I question your choices. I'm calling it what it is, Kevin says firmly, not backing down an inch. You're saying art is only valuable if it serves a certain purpose, if it pushes a specific agenda. That's literally the definition of propaganda, Joy. Real art asks questions. It explores human nature. It shows us parts of ourselves. It doesn't just tell people what to think. And your Westerns do. That, Joy challenges her tone, dripping with disbelief. Your stories about cowboys, gunfights, and the good old days. Those are asking deep questions. Kevin's eyes flash with intensity. Yes, they are. They ask about justice, morality, and what people are willing to give up for what they believe in. They ask whether civilization and wilderness can exist together, whether progress always means destroying what came before, whether people can keep their integrity in a corrupt world. Just because those questions are asked through the lens of a Western doesn't make them less meaningful. But they're not the questions we need to be asking right now. Joy insists. According to who? Kevin demands, voice rising again. According to you, you don't get to decide which questions are worth asking. Joy, you don't get to choose which stories matter. That's the whole point of artistic freedom. Whoopi tries again to step in. Okay, I think we all need to take a breath here. But Joy isn't finished. Kevin, let me be very clear. I think you're a talented filmmaker. I think you made some truly important films. But I also think you're being defensive right now instead of listening to real criticism about the genre you keep working in and the messages it sends. I'm being defensive. Kevin repeats, incredulous. Joy, you spent the last 15 minutes attacking my work, my choices, and my values. And you're surprised I'm defending myself? You invited me here to talk about my new project. But instead you've turned it into an interrogation about whether I even have the right to make the movies I want to make. That's not what I did. Joy protests. That's exactly what you did. Kevin fires back. From the moment I sat down, you've been trying to make me apologize for creating Westerns. You've implied my work is outdated, that it attracts a wrong kind of audience, that it steals attention from more worthy projects, that it spreads harmful values. At what point were you actually going to ask me about the story I came here to discuss? Sarah tries one last time to steer things back. Kevin, why don't you tell us what this new project is about? What's the story? Kevin exhales, thinking about letting it go, about moving on. But then he looks back at Joy. You know what, Sarah? I appreciate that, but I think Joy and I need to finish this talk, because there's something important here. Joy, do you believe in artistic freedom or not? Joy looks startled by the question. Of course, I believe in artistic freedom. Then why are you sitting here telling me what I should and shouldn't make? Kevin presses. Why are you implying my choices are wrong? That I should make different movies? That the stories I care about don't matter? That's not artistic criticism. Joy. That's censorship pretending to be social awareness. It's not censorship to critique someone's work. Joy says firmly. You're right. It's not. Kevin agrees. But there's a big difference between critiquing something and questioning whether it should exist at all. And that's the line you crossed. You're not saying my Westerns could be deeper or more balanced. You're saying I shouldn't be making them at all. You're saying the genre itself is flawed, that the themes it explores are outdated, that the people who love them are backwards. That's not film criticism, Joy. That's cultural gatekeeping. The audience is completely locked in now. You could hear a pin drop between every exchange. The other hosts have practically stopped trying to mediate and are just watching the moment unfold. Joy's voice softens a bit, but her eyes stay sharp. Kevin, I'm going to ask you one more time. Don't you think, considering everything happening in the world right now with all the division, confusion, and the issues society is facing, don't you believe you have a duty to use your platform to tell stories that bring people together instead of ones that glorify or romanticize versions of the past? Kevin stares at her for a long moment before replying. Joy, my duty as a filmmaker is to tell stories that stay true to my vision, that carry real artistic honesty, and that express something genuine about the human condition. My responsibility is not to create films that serve as propaganda pieces for your political beliefs or anyone else's. If my Westerns connect people because they recognize something shared and universal in them, that's wonderful. And if they don't interest you, that's perfectly fine as well. But I won't apologize for creating art that I believe in just because it doesn't match your narrow idea of what's acceptable. Narrow. Joy's voice rises again, sharp and offensive. You're calling my view narrow. Yes, I am. Kevin answers directly. You're suggesting that if art doesn't serve some modern political message, it's not important. That's an extremely limited way to see what art can represent and achieve. Art isn't confined to the times we're living through, Joy. It's about timeless themes, lasting questions, beauty, truth, and the deep complexity of human emotions. Those things don't lose meaning simply because the story takes place in a historical setting. Joy shakes her head, exhaling in frustration. I guess we're just going to have to agree to disagree on this. Kevin, no, Joy. I don't think we will, Kevin replies, his tone steady but final. Because this conversation isn't really about Westerns at all, is it? It's about whether artists have the freedom to create what they truly want, or if they must seek permission from people like you who believe they know better. And I'm telling you now, I will never ask for that kind of approval. I'll make the movies I choose to make. Tell the stories that matter to me. And if you don't like them, that's your choice. But you don't have the right to tell me that I'm wrong for creating them. The air in the studio is charged with tension. Whoopi finally cuts in, her voice firm and calm. All right, we need to take a commercial break. Kevin, thank you for coming. But Kevin stands up, removing his microphone with controlled precision. Actually, Whoopi, I think I'm finished here. Why, Joy? I came on this show in good faith to talk about a film I'm proud of, something that means a lot to me. Instead, you turned this into an interrogation about my creative choices. I don't need that. And honestly, your viewers don't need to see an ambush dressed up as an interview. Joy also rises from her seat, matching his energy. Kevin, if you can't handle hard questions, maybe you shouldn't be doing press tours. Kevin turns toward her one last time, his voice calm but cutting. Tough questions are fine. Joy, I've faced tough questions my whole life. But what you did here wasn't honest questioning. It wasn't critique. It was an attempt to shame me for not making the art that aligns with your beliefs. And I won't accept that from you or anyone else. He walks off the set as the audience breaks into a storm of noise. Some clap and cheer in support. Others boo or gasp. Everyone is talking at once, voices overlapping like a wave of chaos. The camera lingers on Joy, who stands frozen, her face a mix of disbelief, irritation, and confusion. The other hosts exchange uneasy looks, clearly unsure how to continue. Whoopi tries to regain control of the moment, urging calm. But the scene is already unraveled, and that's how one of Hollywood's biggest stars walked off the View during what was supposed to be a simple, friendly promotional interview. No one could have expected that a conversation about Westerns would explode into a fierce argument about creative freedom, censorship, political correctness, and who truly has the right to decide what stories deserve to be told. So, what do you think? Was Kevin justified in defending his creative freedom so passionately? Or did Joy have a fair point about responsibility and representation? Share your thoughts below in the comments, and make sure to hit that subscribe button, because we'll be diving into more shocking and unforgettable celebrity moments just like this one. Let us know,